Hi everybody, my name is Manan Puri. I am the co-founder of Strategy for GMAT. Today in Musings, where we capture career journeys of alums from top B schools, I have with me a fellow alum from ISB class of 2011, Abhishek Srivastava. He is now an entrepreneur, and I'm sure he didn't start out as his short-term career goal at ISB. So he'll talk more a bit about his journey and what it entailed and how you should prepare for your applications in case entrepreneurship is your goal. So thank you, Abhishek, for joining us. Can you please tell a bit more about your profile?
Sure. Thank you, Manan. Really appreciate you doing this. I think it's important for young aspirants to also understand that where does business school actually lead you to. So I think what you're doing is very good. Uh, it is what we call in business school. You're taking the information asymmetry away. Uh, so I think in my case, I have a very strange background compared to most people who go to ISB. I was an environmental engineer, did environmental consulting for a good part of my career, 10 years. Moved straight into sales and strategy, planning at Apple. I used to work at Accenture. And after that, entrepreneurship in learning and development and skill development, right? So had a very interesting sort of run. And yeah, I think life has kept making things interesting for me. I think that's the way I would look at it. And yeah, have studied, I think, studied far too much in life in a way. Now I have 3 degrees, and yeah, I think very happy to be a techno commercial person. I think that's the way I look at myself. I understand technical things well, but do understand business a lot. So I think that's the way I would summarize myself. And I'm a massive sports fanatic. So
Which I know, and we exchange notes on cricket in any case, right? Okay, so you mentioned you're more a techno commercial bent of mind of wherever you are right now. So what prompted you to go for an MBA after a master's, and that's something in the technical side of things, and I'm sure that was your passion then. So why MBA?
so it's actually very interesting. It's strangely enough what I wrote in my essay, and strangely enough, I actually did mean it, and I actually followed through. So I was a very technical person. I was an engineer. I was a hardcore environmental engineer who loved his degree. Did my bachelor's, did my master's in the US. I worked uh, in the US in that area. I mean, my degree was so core. I would stand on the top of a smokestack and put a probe down. I would go to an underground mine and take soil samples and everything. So I actually lived out my engineering like hardcore. But what I realized is I was very passionate about the area, and I wanted to drive environment and sustainability as the agenda for big companies. But what I realized, you can't do it till you don't understand the language of business and the language of money and business models. And for me, the only place I could actually go and get it together in a very nicely packaged way was business school. And this is why business school became important for me, because if I had to move from techno to techno commercial, uh, I needed to understand commerce, because I didn't come from a commerce background. I had no clue. I didn't do it in 11th and 12th standard. I had no clue what commerce means, what microeconomics and accounting and finance and all that stuff means. Not at all. I was just a hardcore engineer. X plus Y equal to Z. That's it. Right. And I think business school just blew my mind up, honestly, because what seemed like common sense was not really common. And I think that was my rationale for business school, and I was very happy when I went to business school. I actually got it. So I hope that answers the question there.
Oh, definitely did. And I think a lot of people would resonate with what you have done, especially a lot of engineers who apply to ISB. Not all of them are as fortunate to work in the engineering specialization that they do. But I think that they'll resonate with that. So coming to how you prepared for your applications and your interview, back then the class size was also a little smaller. I'm not sure, a big alumni base also. So how did you actually manage and how did you prepare for your applications and interviews?
So that's a very interesting question. The interesting thing is there was very little information about the whole admissions process at that time. Uh, so the first info session I had attended for ISB was in was the Bristol Hotel in Gurgaon in 2007. So that's 13 years back. Just to give you some context and also tell you how old I am. Actually, yeah, I'm pretty old. So um, yeah, I mean, I think even ISB right that time was discovering itself as a school. It was probably 8 years into its journey, um, and the class size had just increased in the last 2 3 years. So we're talking of an alum pool as small as 2000 something, probably even smaller. So LinkedIn wasn't big enough. You and I honestly would have really done much better in my application process. I think if I had some alum support. I tried to reach out to some alums here and there and all that. Got some basic insights and all, but it was more hearsay. There was very little context and understanding that I could actually get. So it was very hard. It was very difficult preparing for the application because I didn't know what to get, and honestly, I didn't have a top end GMAT score. You know, I had a 680, and the typical answer I would get from most people is, "Oh, you're an engineer, you're a master's, and you got 680. That's not going to get you anywhere." And strangely enough, I'll leave this thought with you. My interview lasted all of 11 minutes. And interestingly enough, because I was in the US, I did a COVID style interview where it was on online on a pretty crappy connection on Skype. Back in the day, I'm talking 2009. Um, so I was sitting in the US early morning, and I think the team was sitting here in Hyderabad. So yeah, I think so. It was a very different journey for me. Very different to get information about ISB, try to understand. I did my research through the website and all that. I think one thing that I got hang of was I got a profile book from somewhere, and what I was able to prove to ISB that in the last 5 years they had only one environmental engineer join them. Right, so I just said that's the disservice that you're doing to us, because we are going to be the most important people going forward in the world, and that's true, right? Environmental and pollution related issues are now the one of the number one priorities for companies. So it's essentially that's the way I banged the door at ISB, that you need to let me in, because if you don't let me in, nobody's going to understand this later.
Yeah, I think, and more than that, what would have resonated is the research, the efforts they actually took to understand the profile for the last 4 years, and this
Yeah.
still applies, here. Obviously, it's easier to access now because alums are there, and there's a lot more literature out there about the school. So, but definitely research helps. Now, post ISB, you
Sorry, can I make a point
yeah,
around
sure,
research? Just,
sure.
I hope it doesn't break the flow. I think now with the information available there, and I have been part of admissions committee at ISB as well and interviewed as well. I think Manan, you had that uh,
Yeah.
privilege as well. Um, the quality of research that some of the candidates and applicants have done is phenomenal, right? And I think don't do the research for the heck of doing research because you get some great points to write on your essay.
Yeah.
I think do the research because that clearly will show to you, to the admissions committee, that this is what I'm going to ISB for, and more importantly for clarity in your own head, because it's a crazy place. It will rip you apart. It will just make you confused. So it'll confuse you so badly in the first month, a couple of months, which has happened to both of us. I'm sure you would remember. And if you don't go in with clarity of goals and clarity of vision, I mean, the place can take you apart very quickly.
No, that's definitely true. And I think, I always tell candidates it's not just the school choosing you, you choosing the school as well.
Yeah.
And the more you demonstrate research and go 2 levels deep on whatever you've written in the essays, because we alums can scratch the surface there and then, because we have all gone through the same journey in the interviews. Okay, and now in terms of switching gears post MBA journey, how much ISB has helped you in terms of the decisions that you've taken, and how has that panned out? I'm sure when you started off, you never would have thought of starting something like an MBAtrek. So how has that panned out, and how ISB in general has helped you, make those decisions and in your journey in general?
So strangely enough, I think the number one value of ISB is people. The way I would think about it, I mean, in my time, the fees was a lot lower. But whatever the fees divided by the alum pool, and you will realize you're paying anywhere between 300 to 400 rupees per person for connection. That's it. I mean, that's not even a monthly Hotstar or a Netflix subscription, right? Come on. So I think that's the way to think about it. For me, the biggest value I have gotten from ISB is, and I realized it when I became an entrepreneur, people were reaching out for funding. People were reaching out for help. People even now are very happy to come to our social media channel and do interviews and do Gyan sessions and all for free. I'm trying to tell them, hey, listen, I need to pay you for this. It's a commercial agreement. They're like, no, no, no. I won't even sign the document, because if I sign a document, you will be obliged to pay me. And I'm like, no, come on. They're like, no, it's just the connection we've built. And for me, it was very valuable because I was moving from the US to India, and I had never worked in India actually. I'd interned a lot, but I never worked. So I needed that network to grow in my career. And it was amazing. It was just like, it just blew my mind. The kind of work people had done, the industries they had worked in, that learning was amazing. Um, and it's really helped me post ISB. So post ISB, I think the biggest thing that business school and especially ISB really got to me was how to structure and think about business, right? Um, it was so compelling that when I went to Accenture and worked in sort of strategy consulting and sustainability consulting, and even in Apple, when I picked up a proper business strategy and business execution role, all those thinking and the frameworks. By the way, I didn't remember any of the theory at that point, but I remembered the first principles and the heuristics and the conversations with all the people I had sort of my study groups and all that. So all that learning, all that ideas, all that actually helped me all the way through, even in MBAtrek. So I think business school really helps. I think especially ISB also, because of its network and the whole business school learning, I think it gives you life skills. I think we are doing it a massive demerit by saying it's just a business school which gives you business learning. I think it's incorrect. I think there is a lot more you learn about life yourself, how you handle pressure, how do you deal with tight deadlines, how do you deal with lack of sleep, how do you deal with different personalities, how do you deal with difficult situations where you have to give hard feedback to someone, how do you deal with a very competitive crowd of people, right? Because it's the A-listers which apply and um, land up at ISB. So I think the life skill portion of ISB, that's a huge thing. And I don't see that learning going away anytime soon. I think it will take me to my grave, actually, yeah, honestly. Right? It will take me through life. It's helped me everywhere. So I think that's the value of the ISB degree. I know it may sound cliche or it may sound very Gyani per se, but I think that's the reality. It's what it is.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think for most of us, it is a humbling experience because prior to
Right.
ISB, all of us were quote unquote achievers in our own fields, and you have a few hundred achievers in one place, and you're like, okay, you've done nothing. And there are people who are much better than you, have faced situations which are much tougher than you, all on the army battlefield or the operations table or anything else, right? So I think it's an humbling experience to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And it's a humbleness that they bring in.
Yes.
What
Yes. Humility. Yeah.
what
Yeah.
wows you is the humility with which they talk about what they have done, and
Yeah.
you suddenly realize, I mean, I've just sat behind a desk. Like,
Yes.
I mean, I'm not real. Yes, in my case, yes, I had done a lot of field work and so a lot of interesting field work. it was great. But when you would hear some people talk about their experiences working in nuclear submarines, working, the battlefield, working in the police, in very hard, criminal infested, or sort of militant, extremist areas and all that, that's when life really hits you, like you get, I think it's a real reality check also. It's a real reality check.
Yeah. Great. So I think I know the answer, but now you're on your entrepreneurial journey. There are people who eventually want to get there. There are people who want to do it immediately after their MBA. So, do you think an MBA is necessary to become an entrepreneur? Because one school of thought is if you're spending, say, 40, 50, 60 lakhs on an MBA, that's basically seed capital for you. Why not, start investing in your business and hire a couple of MBA grads, right? So, what's your take on that? Is MBA necessary to become an entrepreneur, a successful one at that?
That's interesting, right? Yeah, if you go to, let's say, Ritesh Agarwal, he'll tell you it's the other way around. He just hires a bunch of, keeps hiring ISB guys and guys and girls, sorry, and just completely, makes things happen. I think obviously there are so many other founders on the other side who have proper MBA degrees, gone to the best schools, and done so well. So I wouldn't have the answer when I started my entrepreneurship journey, but I think now the answer is starting to crystallize for me. I would break it, and I would use the MBA cliche of it depends. So let me tell you how it depends. I think the first part is, if your idea is strong enough and the market is there for it right there and then, and there is no discovery of market needed, and the idea is really strong and everything, then I think maybe uh, jumping straight into the entrepreneurship journey makes sense. However, you will need people with the sort of the MBA background and the business background to help you either raise funds, or grow the business, or the build the commercial side of it, because you may largely be the technical person in the team, the CTO or the product officer or whatever. On the other hand, which I think is the massive amount of population, most people have some kind of idea or something brewing in their mind, but they don't know exactly what it is. I think MBA with a little bit of work experience, little can be defined anywhere between 2 years to 10 years, in my case 11 years. uh, I think that gives you a lot of understanding of structure, business processes. And the beauty I think I have had is when now I explain my business to someone, or my venture to other founders, and they're surprised by, even though my company is small and it's still growing in terms of number of people and all that, they're almost surprised by the level of process and structure that has been built in. And it's not because it's my personality. I think it's just the learning that has happened through MBA and the work experience, which has naturally led to me building a very structured yet a very small company right now in terms of number of people and resources. So we are growing very rapidly, absolutely. But I think uh, that I think is the fundamental difference. If your idea is hot, it's there, it's killing it in the market, go for it, right? Go for it. That point. I think for the large section of the population, it's not really there. So maybe MBA with a little bit of work X, I think it really helps. Obviously sorting out a lot of the financial stuff and everything, and gives you a sense of confidence also. I believe so. I think same in your case, Manan, as well. You worked for a little bit as well, not for a little bit, quite a bit actually, and now have decided to take the plunge into entrepreneurship as well. So yeah, I think that's the answer for me.
No, totally makes sense. These, as you said, right? These life skills are there in the way you're running the company as well. The culture and all those things will definitely also help. Yeah. So finally, in terms of B-school aspirants who have entrepreneurship as their immediate goal or eventually want to become entrepreneurs, what would your advice be to put in their applications and, in general, thinking about an MBA?
I think it's the important thing when you think about the MBA, or think about a school like ISB. I think, at least for me, ISB is a very entrepreneurship centric school, which is something which is, I think, very unique about it, or at least it really pushes entrepreneurs. Um, is A, when you pick the school should have an entrepreneurial vibe around it. I think that's very critical. The school should almost celebrate entrepreneurs, right? I remember, during my my ISB days, when the placement season was on, one of our club members had gotten placed, and we got into the lift, and we were all congratulating him. And one of our faculty was there, and he was like, "Yeah, yeah, good, good, good." And there's this another guy who had just announced to the batch that he was starting his venture, and the professor just hugged him and said, "Welcome to the world of business. Congratulations." He was so happy that he was looking to start up, right? And it obviously, in 2011, it took a lot of guts to start up, right, and make that decision. Now is a very, very, very different time. So I think that's the nature of the school, and I think that's what you have to look for. Is the school really valuing entrepreneurs coming in? Is entrepreneurs a big set of their batch, or the profiles that they come in? Also, how have entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs done afterwards? I think that that connection is also important to check. The other thing, from a personal perspective, I think it is, you have to be very clear what is it that the school will give you that will help you in your entrepreneurship journey. If you're looking to go into entrepreneurship in immediately, I think the biggest thing is, will it give me access to funds, or let me help incubate? Will it give me partners and co-founders? Will it give me potentially for a set of business leads, or my, can I use this network to crack, especially if you're running a B2B kind of business or something. I think in the longer term, you have to say that, can it help me get the right roles, or get me to that career path, which will lead me to my entrepreneurial journey. And I think this thing needs to be very strongly crystallized in your application. Because if you can summarize what you believe is the future journey I'm sure there's always a career essay or something right now, in every business school application, I'm sure even with ISB. If you can do that, I think that gives a lot of comfort to the admissions committee and who is reviewing the application, that this person may not have all the answers, but they're not very far off from the actual answer. And that's a very critical thing for future entrepreneurs, right? Because you need to have that connections built in. And I think, just if I can summarize from a broader perspective, build connections in your essays around different things or goals or whatever you have to do, but make sure they are very strong connections and they look very credible. Because if the connections are very loose, a lot of applicants make the mistake of making very loose connections just because uh, it sounds sexy, or it's just for the sake of it. I think that actually does more damage to your profile and your application than build few connections, but build them very, very strongly. I think that shows a lot of conviction also. Uh, and I think it's greatly appreciated.
No, that's a very valid point. Don't mention anything for the heck of it just because it sounds sexy to be there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It,
And I think it's the way startups look at MVPs, right?
yeah.
They try to make sure that the MVP is so solid in what it does. Limited features, but it works brilliantly, right?
Yes. Yes. I
And
agree.
then we'll scale up. I think the essay is the same way, right? Or
Yeah.
the way your profile comes through. Don't try to cover everything in your profile. You can't be God, and you're not expected to be God
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
So
No, that's a great analogy with an MVP. I'm sure that will resonate
yeah,
with a lot of engineers and product managers also. Right.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for taking out time and sharing your thoughts on your journey and in general advising on the applicants. Thanks again and all the best with whatever you're doing with MBAtrek. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Perfect. Can I add one more thing at the end?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would just say to to all young people and young aspirants all there, I think connect with alums, connect with people like Manan, because they'll help you guide you to whether an application even makes sense for you,
Yeah.
right? Don't just come to alums saying, I'm sure I want to apply and this is what it is, right? Have a detailed conversation with them, understand whether you're the right fit, understand whether it's the right time also. um, and I think one final parting thought I'd leave people with, when we were coming through our career, we were very desperate to get jobs in careers. I think we came from an age of desperation. I think we're looking at all of you to be the age of inspiration. I think India as a country can no longer be a set of desperate young people coming out just wanting to get jobs. Uh, and I think it's when the next generation decides to lead an age of inspiration is when entrepreneurs, new business, new way of living, quality of life. I think a lot of good things that uh, that hasn't yet arrived for India will arrive, right? So I think and I think the proof of the pudding is to see the tech ecosystem, right? The tech ecosystem in India has primarily come from inspiration, right? And same is slowly happening with the edtech space. Uh, so I think, yeah, I think that would be parting thought around that.
No, that's a great thought, and thank you for not letting me finish. I think you saved the best for the last. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
and all the best. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Best of luck to everyone.
Thank you.